Good afternoon, everyone. This is Turbo Talk in the Florentine room, talking about USB HID, which we defined as hacker interface design. Myself, Richard Rushing, I have Jason Pisani here, and Paul Carugati here. We're from Motorola. And we originally started looking at this, and Jason will give you some more information of what kind of triggered this event. But in regards to, USB is pretty much the ultimate interface that's being used today. The issue is that we've gone through several iterations of bad things happening. We're just used to, oh, here's a memory stick, plug it in, copy files. Oh, here is the auto run capability, malware issue, U3 issues, and we keep going through this. And it's part of the culture, part of the issues that are there, and now we're starting to see some leveraging of additional sides of this. We've seen a couple of people use this at different levels, and it's the same thing. It's really super easy to exploit, and it gives you pretty much good control of what you're actually trying to do. So I'll turn it over to Jason here, which will talk about how we actually came into being on this.
Sure. So we've got a USB device spec that lets us do a lot of really flexible things, and what we've seen is obviously use in a lot of different areas. And USB HIDs, any device that wants to talk on the USB bus can comply with the HID standard, announce itself, define its data formats, and basically get access to existing drivers to some extent without having to load new device drivers onto the endpoint. So this goes across a giant class of things: cameras, everything else. And what we're starting to see, and I guess this is what triggered it for us, is that a financial company had sent me a piece of junk mail, and on my way to the trash bin with it, I noticed it had USB contacts on the back. And I thought, why would they bother to put metal on the back of a piece of disposable plastic I'm going to put in the trash can? And took a little closer look at it and realized, yeah, it's USB. They mean for me to plug it into my computer. I'm a reasonably smart guy. My machine doesn't do auto run. I've got whitelisting enabled. Nothing is going to run on my computer. Maybe I get a free 64 meg memory card out of it. Memory's so cheap now. I plugged it in, and little did I know it's going to start to bring up a web page on my computer. Launches an intermediate page, and then eventually lands me at the financial site. But I had to do nothing. Windows initially, saw the device, initialized it as a keyboard, and took an input stream from it, and it can do whatever it wants. So it took no effort, no brains. I'm not really sure why they felt the need to go to this much expense to get me to land on a 24-character URL at their website. So I guess what we're looking at this is a bypass, an intentional bypass of controls to use this type of device versus anything else, because it bypasses all those auto-run controls that we've worked so hard to get disabled in our enterprises. So this is, I think, for us, this is the next thing we're going to have to tackle. I don't know if Paul wants to go to the next piece here.
Okay. So after Jason's epiphany and received via snail junk mail, what did we decide to do? So we wanted to try to put this in some sort of proof of concept, right? To see what could we do with this. We had a limited amount of time. So we came up with a few things just again as a proof of concept, just to show you what the potential here and the ability of being able to bypass some of the interactive control features within the operating system. So what we were able to do is identify or find a USB microcontroller, programmable read-write microcontroller, to be able to program to emulate this type of a human interface device. There's a couple of different compilation software programs you can use. WinAVR, we actually used Arduino, which is very, very similar to a C programming interface, object-oriented programming interface, the microcontroller that we used just so happened to support the Arduino software natively. So it was super, super easy. The microcontroller comes with free loader software. I think the chip costs like $20. We got it in the mail within a couple days, and within about 30 minutes. So I'm not a programmer. I'm a security professional by nature here, and I haven't programmed C in 9.5 years. So we sat down, and with literally within 20 minutes, we were able to get this working. So what we're going to try to do is demo it for you. It's super quick. It's not very fancy, unfortunately. We're hoping to get something a little more interactive. But I think you'll get the point of the potential danger that this is going to cause. So what we're able to do, and I'll show you the source in a second here, is just simply program the controller to be able to. We emulated exactly the device that Jason was sent in the mail. We also thought, well, hey, what's some of the other super easy exploits that we might be able to run as a result of this? And we're able to open a command line natively without any user input whatsoever. And mount a potentially malicious network share. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is make the impossible possible here, right? So we've already completely disabled auto run, so we're completely fine, right? We've got app whitelisting, we've got all the other different types of security control programs on the OS. We're fine. Not the case, right? The other key point in here that we actually don't have in the presentation is this is cross-platform. Right, so autorun is something that's specific to Windows, and other OSs have different variants, obviously. But this is standard HID, right? So this is Windows, Linux, Mac, across the board. And of course, right, making the box do what you want, priceless across. Real quick before we get into the demo, this is the source. Again, very short. It's like 50 lines or so. For your pleasure, if you'd like to take a look at it, again, what we're trying to do is just implement a proof of concept, show you the potential here, right? This obviously is in the end all be all what we're going to show you, but I think you get the point of the potential danger that this might have. So the first demo I'll show you, the device itself will obviously if it's the first install, it will load the driver. We've got a 30-second wait for the HID driver to finish installing. It'll then simply emulate a Windows hotkey input, open up a command prompt, and then attempt to mount a share outside of the internal network. So this is what it looks like. Here's the chip, right? Standard mini USB input. Let's see. There you go. I drew the short straw. So hopefully the demo demons don't get me here, right? So it's plugged in. We might have actually plugged it into this machine before, so obviously you're not going to see the pop-up that Windows would normally show you. It's waiting 30 seconds right now, so hopefully within 30 seconds we'll see it pop up. Yeah, exactly. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves.
I think, Paul, it's the way you're holding it.
Oh, is it? Sorry. How's that? There we go. So there's your command prompt. And then it should shift focus back to the original window, which it did, but didn't work the way I wanted it to. But so obviously, again, nothing major frills, nothing majorly fancy here. But the point is what we're able to do is just simply by installing this, auto run is completely disabled. It's not executing any PE. It's simply just emulating keyboard, human interface device keystrokes into the system. So, with a little more intelligent code, something to be able to detect the OS, whether or not it's XP or if it's Vista or 7 for Windows, if it's got UAC running, if UAC pops up, there's no reason I couldn't. If I want to run an advanced privileged command, I could just simply click through the yes right on the UAC. The key here is being able to do this quick. So the user is completely unaware of anything happening, and the majority of them, at least in my family, would definitely fall into that category. So one other point I did forget to mention is within the source, you'll see I did put a bunch of sleeps in here to make this run a little slower, just so for the purposes of the demo, so that you could actually see the windows popping up. But you can go as fast as the input would expect, right? So anticipate any actual user interaction that's going to be changing what you're anticipating on the screen. This could go, within, this could actually all happen within between 2 to 3 seconds without the user being aware. So, that's it. Oh, yeah. Let's do the other one. So I'm going to unplug this one. And plug in this one. Ooh, yeah, I know. I realized there's an LED on this. We should have had it blink or something. I don't know. just to keep you guys. You know, it's after the ice cream social. You guys are sugar high. Yeah, you're coming down off that. So again, waiting for 30 seconds. This is completely programmable. It's just something that we put in so that if it was the device's first time installing, we would wait for Windows to load the HID driver. Maybe. There we go. And of course, we turned wireless off because we're at Blackhat, so that's not going to work. And it changed focus, if you notice, real quick. So what happened was it loaded IE, tried to go do evil URL. Again, you could point this directly to a file on a web server, click through the accept yes to download, and then it automatically changed focus, so it went right back to the window I was looking at. So again, you blink for a couple seconds. Keep in mind I slowed this down specifically for this demo, so if a user blinks for a couple seconds, drops a quarter on the floor, they're going to miss that. So I think that's it. Richard, you're up.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
So, and we've looked at different things in this. So you can, again, being in a keyboard design, you can use hotkeys to functionally make your screen go external. So all of a sudden the screen would go black, looks what happens, it's actually going to the external monitor, come back online, you're back on the other side. So all sorts of different ways to hide in the background and do other functions. So what can you do on this side of it? And this is where it gets some of the areas. We've looked at the web page download, malware is always fun. You can even force log on. So if they're cached any credentials or anything else, you can look at it, capture that in the areas. Again, click through anything. Really, anything you really are desired to want in this area. It's also one of these items that is a corporate nightmare, as I refer to it as, that if it works on one machine in an organization, it's probably going to work on every single machine in the organization. And once you have one capability, you can go for that. You can also create VNC type like access very easily, so you can actually get a shell running somewhere in the background, missing the focus on that. Copy files too from shares, backup things over the internet. Anything that you want to eliminate, emulate on the keyboard, you can actually do. It's really limited by just what your imagination actually sits down with. It's all keyboard shortcuts, and again, how to hide things, sizing windows, everything else is part of the issue, so minimization and everything else. So it's always something that we really left with, well, what can you actually do? And then we start looking at, okay, what's the futurescape of this? What can you actually do to get into some of the areas? And one of the key things that came into it as a known issue in the past, if you can, we can minimize some things here. And do like I want to do is that screensavers. I know it's really silly, but it goes back to the same kind of idea. Once somebody has physical access to your device, game over. It's been that way for a very long time. Oh yeah, I can boot with a CD, I get control of anything else. It's pretty much on the same thing. And screensavers have this wonderful feature, which is accessibility options. I don't know if I can get this. So screensaver is enabled and I can turn on certain accessibility options. Do you want to enable high contrast or not? Okay, wait, it's screensaver. You should not do anything I don't want to do. And accessibility options are designed to bypass in some of those levels, which allow you access to certain things to turn on and not turn on. So this is one of the things that you basically say, well, if safe, and the same goes for auto run, you're not in those specifics of that, because you can actually make changes and do other things. So this is where we start getting into the exploit side of the world. And you can start looking at the capabilities that are out there. I view it as the ultimate version of a switchblade. For those who don't know, switchblades, usually USB, self-bootable, does malicious things. These are even better because the machine can actually be on. And you can do anything that you want to with the controls. Again, these are interface design things. So it's a mouse, it's an interface, you can have multiple mice, which could, inserting this, removing it, it's created a mouse interface. You can create a mouse to sit there and go 1 by 1 pixel in a circle, somewhere just off the screen or just on the bottom. It's not going to interfere with anything, but it will prevent the screensavers from coming on. It'll keep everything active for the user not to run. Auto run disable does absolutely nothing on this side. Some of the newer interesting areas that come into play, USB fuzzing. Again, the device drivers are designed for hardware. A mouse only does certain things. The driver says is written to a specification that you're only going to do the following. I'm not going to change anything, I'm not going to go anything, this is what the mouse is going to do. And the drivers are actually set to that. Well, guess what? I can now change that by this design and say, no, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm going to do something out of bounds. And this becomes some of the ability to actually fuzz the devices using a simple interface. And again, blue screens are really easy to do in generating this function. And you could go generate any of the HID functions that are actually there, and you discover that most of the drivers are not very well written. Again, they're standard hardware drivers. I know how the hardware is going to perform. Here's what I'm going to accept as its inputs. And figuring the hardware is going to do the bound checking for a lot of this. USB 3.0 supports DMA, direct memory access. For those that are familiar with DMA, just say this is added to the same functionality of FireWire interfaces and PCMCIA interfaces. So if you know some old exploits that have been around for that, guess what? They're now going to be done for USB on that side of it. So you're able to do all sorts of really, really malicious things with a simple side of a key on that side of it. So that becomes definitely some of the interesting aspects and capabilities going forward in this area. Again, what can be done? I sometimes feel like the cat more than often that's there. You can disable external USBs. The problem is docking stations and other devices that, hey, I have 4 USBs now. Guess what? I plug into a docking station. Oh, your keyboards don't work anymore. Thank you for playing. It's very hard to integrate that into an organization. My favorite is the USB glue. I actually don't know if this is a humorous thing or that's actually a product. I'm trying to order a stick of it to see if I can actually get it. But again, it's not out of common for people to put epoxy and other types of resins inside the USB to keep them from actually functioning on that side of it. They understand the issues on the security side if this is becoming a common area there. USD device management, group policies, I know it's a dirty word in some cases, but it also does allow certain functions to be actually pushed down to the action. We also talked about third-party applications. It's not a really difficult to write a trivial program that would actually say, hey, you're not allowed to have 2 keyboards plugged into there at one time. You have one single HID device. Why do you need 2? And you can prompt and disable the other one on the capability, as well as the OS monitoring the control aspects of this over and over again. So it's definitely an ongoing issue that's there. It's something that is now just being exploited. I've seen about 3 other talks based upon the same thing. So I'm thinking they got Jason's card at about the same time we did. And again, it's a new frontier in regards to this. It becomes a very easy, you never thought about somebody walking around with a keyboard and plugging it into systems and running commands. Now you've got, all I have to do is plug this one device in, and when it's done, unplug it and let it run. It gives a whole different reflection of physical access and control and other form factors to be able to do exploitation on that side. That's all I have. I've got about 5 minutes for questions. Yes?
So you don't stop the driver from being loaded in the first place?
No, because, well, you can do it through GPO or some of the other policies that are there, but a lot of the human interface drivers are already preloaded into the application that's actually there. And so it just recognizes it as another USB keyboard in that aspect of it. So it's really difficult to perform that function unless you create policy to say, don't load these drivers in that subset of that.
But you'd affect all USB keyboards if you were to do that. You can disable USB keyboard, but you lose them all at once.
So along the same lines, the sample card that you got, did that actually install a driver or use your native driver?
Use the native Windows driver. So,
No.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so the question was that when he got his card from the major financial institution, did it install a driver or not? And Jason's point is no. It basically used the drivers that are built into the OS.
It initialized the device with a built-in driver. There was nothing extra load. It just worked.
Just like it would if you went and bought a keyboard and came home and plugged it in.
Left side, black shirt.
This is kind of a two-part question. How do you detect what OS is running using this model?
Question. Go ahead. Repeat
I'm sorry.
the question.
So to repeat the question, how could you detect what OS is running?
Yeah, or you mentioned being able to distinguish between Vista, XP, and things like that. Is there any conceivable way of doing that without having to load additional drivers using what's there?
Right. So again, proof of concept. We weren't able to get that far with the limited time that we had to put everything together. But what we were conceptualizing is the ability of being able to perhaps load, if you could leverage it as another driver, or in fact, perhaps try to take advantage of the fact if auto run is not disabled, to run something just to simply check and then call a specific routine that would then load the HID driver and then would run a specific call or the specific function within the code that was written for that OS. Like for example, if it was XP, you wouldn't want the extra clicks for UAC because you know that it's not there.
So you would have the strategy would be you would blindly attempt to see if it detects a mass storage device and act on it.
Exactly.
Active code that identifies what you have and then feed that back through some other driver that it loads to the device and then let it keep going.
Correct, yes. It's kind of complex and there's a lot of nested logic in there, but technically possible, we think.
Yeah, and again, a lot of this is just you're streaming input information off of that. So again, to Paul's point, you could see about potentially a status of doing something back onto the driver to load something else in the form factor. You said it was two parts, or is that both? Okay. There's one other question. Yeah.
Sure.
So the question is are some of the devices like these teensy boards or anything else multiple devices that hold again combo drives, USB drives, or some of the other ones?
I personally didn't see any like that. We went for the low-hanging fruit, the cheapest board we could get out there just to get it running.
The Teensy is capable of multiple. So you can do mass storage and.
I think
there's no reason we couldn't split it in half. I think these are 128, 256 meg chips. So there's no reason you couldn't split it up.
Okay. Question. You could do wireless. You can do Ethernet. You can do Ethernet. You can do a lot of other functionality built into that. Again, anything that's based on USB now becomes prior functions. Again, other things such as USB hubs operate very strangely when another USB hub's plugged in, and how do they find which one's connected to where? There's all sorts of little things as these boards can produce that can change the way things are actually configured. Next year, yeah. One of the issues about 2 years ago, they did an exploit for wireless keyboards based upon the Bluetooth, and again, it uses Bluetooth. It uses the L2 cap interface to go back and forth, but under that L2 cap interface is the HID that's actually plugged into. So it becomes the same functionality and capability that's there. One more question? Anyone? Going once, going twice? Sold. Okay, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.